Carolyn Dube here. I'm playing with the January stencils for Stencil Club for Stencil Girl products. These were designed by Jessica Sporn, and the patterns she's made this month are amazing. Well, I'm going to dive right into the 9x12 one with some heavy-bodied acrylic paint. When stenciling, of course, you should go up and down. That way your paint does not seep underneath the stencil. You'll notice I don't really follow that rule very well. I kind of smoosh it all around. Here's what I've got, and this looks great by itself, but I want to add some more colors to it because you know me, I've got to have an entire rainbow in there. What I'm using now are Golden High Flow acrylic paints. These are paints that are fluid like an ink, so they flow on very nicely. I've got the yellow, and in a perfect world, I would have white, but I don't have any white, so I'm just going to play around with mixing up some different colors to get the colors that I like. I would like to tell you that I had this deep, carefully thought out plan for how I was going to add color to this, but I didn't. But what I did get from this was almost a sort of meditative feeling as I'm filling these in and just sort of letting me go with wherever the color called to me, filling in parts of it. You'll notice that I skip some and then I'll go back and do those, and that's because I'm just sort of playing around with this, adding bits of color for what feels right to me. So I had the problem where I had this idea in my head of the colors that I wanted for this, and I didn't have the exact colors of paint to make that happen. So that sort of forced me to go around and mix up some of my own colors, to experiment a little bit more. And you know what? In the end, I'm really glad I didn't have a lot of colors to use for this, because it really pushed me. And I'm staying in all these blues and yellows and greens, but I really want some parts of it to pop out a little bit more. And those little orange dots that I put in there, I love them, but I want a little more pop to this. So out comes my blue and my green mixed together. And as I'm doing this, I'm beginning to realize that some of my strokes are showing. Maybe I don't like that. But then I'm like, you know what? Embrace it. Go with it. So now I really went and darkened it up and really pulled this element out of Jessica's design. Hadn't planned on it this way, but guess what? I'm really liking how it's coming together. Well, once I have that done, and now what? I have to add some writing somewhere, so I pulled out a white Stabilo pencil, and I just started sort of journaling my thoughts right into the swirls and the darker swirls. I don't ever intend to read these. I don't think anybody else can actually read them. It's not about actually reading it when I journal on things like this. It's about just sort of processing feelings, processing thoughts. Very similar to doing something like morning pages from The Artist's Way, a wonderful book by Julia Cameron. So this is my version of morning pages when I do this kind of scribble writing into my art. Well, last thing I want is some kind of title-ish type word on here. So I'm going to use the 4x4 stencil, and using just the remnant paint on my palette, I am going to stencil around that. I'm going to tear out the word, and now I can just put it right there. I'll glue that down with a little bit of glue, and I now have a completed art journal page. Well, okay, it's not really complete yet. I had to add a little bit more. And this is the beauty of having a little bit of wet paint left on the palette, is I'm just putting little hints of yellow through the script, so it just adds a little something to it without overpowering it. Well, thanks for joining me for my art journal play today. If you're still here, that means you're probably enjoying it, so why not subscribe to my YouTube channel? Or you can follow me on Facebook, or on Google+, or on Twitter, or on Pinterest, or I think those are the only places I'm at that I know of right now. Man, I get around a bit. Well, anyway, you can follow me in any of those places, or you can share this in any of those places, because you know what? Every time someone shares or subscribes, that really does sort of encourage and feed the artistic soul. So thank you so much for your support and encouragement.